You're just gonna edit it and do stuff like that.
I don't really edit it. I just kind of put it up unedited. So if you swear or curse or fuck up, or if yeah, if you just start being a weirdo, it's just all gonna be
Oh, I am a weirdo. It sounds great. Let's do it.
dope. So do you want to start out with a little introduction and then talk about what you do?
Yeah, sounds good, Nick. So my name is Field Martin. 25. I'm a wildland firefighter for the United States Forest Service. Yeah, I work for the United States Forest Service in the Caribou-Targhee National Forest in Island Park, Idaho. I'm a 20-person interagency initial attack hand crew. How's that?
That sounds official.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a lot of? Do you get to wear like a lot of uniforms or things with patches on them? I feel like it'd be really cool to just have things.
Yeah, so like in the fire world, so you probably see all like the Forest Service Rangers with their smoky hats on and their big Forest Service patches. But when you're on like a Forest Service crew or a Forest Service fire engine, you wear your crew garb, you wear your crew goodies. Like my name of my crew is the Centennial Hand Crew, Type 2 interagency or Type 2 initial attack hand crew. So Centennial Mountains is what my crew is named after, and we have the Centennial Mountains is like the logo on our shirts. Our crew colors are blue hard hats, blue shirts, and the Centennial Mountains. They're pretty cool because they're one of the few mountain ranges in America that run east to west instead of north to south.
Interesting. That's
Pretty
really cool.
Yeah.
Also, how did they choose the background and colors and the names of all of it? I've always been interested in that side of it.
Yeah, usually location. So like talking about my region. So I'm in Region 4 is what it's called in the fire world, which is Utah, Nevada, and most of Idaho, and a little bit of Wyoming, a little bit of just a little sliver of Arizona. But yeah, so like talk about some other crews. There's I think 12 hotshot crews in the Region 4. A lot of them are named after where they're from. So you have the Boise Hot Shots, the Idaho City Hot Shots in Idaho City. Snake River Hot Shots. They're in Pocatello, Idaho. So you got the Logan Hot Shots in Logan, Utah. Cedar City Hot Shots, right? You have like Silver State, Black Mountain. Black Mountain is in around Carson City, Nevada. Silver State is in the Nevada Hotshot crew. So it's usually location, and then sometimes your crew number. So there's Boise. The Boise National Forest has a couple hand crews. They're called Boise Crew 3 and Boise Crew 5. Crew 5's in, let's say, Garden Valley or Loman, maybe. And then they move actually up to Elk Creek, which is a pretty cool spot. They move up there usually halfway through the season. And then Crew 3 is in Idaho City as well. So, it's kind of usually a location or like a natural feature, like, the Snake River or Black Mountain or, something like that. Ruby Mountain Hot Shots in Elko, Nevada. Ruby Mountains are beautiful. Have you ever been there?
I have not. Where's that at? Nevada?
Ruby Mountains, yeah, low key spot, man. They get snow. They're huge mountains in Nevada, and no one's ever heard of them. Well, I mean, people have heard of them, but
see, Nevada is one. I was just talking about this to one of the guys at the coffee shop that we go to here in Tampa about Nevada and how crazy it is, because it's like one of the only places I feel like I've been to where I hit these huge swaths of highway that are going through like pretty much absolutely nothing, where you see signs that's like no service for the next 100 miles or something. And if you don't fill up there, you're screwed, because you end up hitting this like 100-some degree weather and you're just stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's like really awesome spots out there, because I worked with a dude who snowboarded out in some mountains out there, and I feel like that's the last thing you think about when you think of Nevada.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it could have been the Ruby Mountains he was at, or maybe somewhere. I mean, you have also Nevada over around the Sierra Nevadas too. Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, I mean, loneliest highway in America is in Nevada. That's where that highway is. I-80 corridor in Nevada. You can rip on that. I think it's like 8 hours on that between California and Utah. It's a haul. Yeah, Nevada. It's a strange place. There's a lot of nothing. Don't get me wrong. All things have intrinsic value, but there's a whole lot of nothing in Nevada.
Yeah, no kidding. They know how to party though. They know how to party. So let's back up a little bit, because I think there was so much in there, and I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, was because from the second we met, I was just like hounding you about fire stuff, because there's just so much involved with it, and there's so many pieces of it that you don't see from the outside. Mm-hmm. And obviously it starts with like why or how you wanted to get into it. Like, did you kind of stumble into it, and as you know, a thing that you did for part of the year just to make money, and then you decided you liked it? Or like, how did, you know, from schooling leading up to now, how did that all play out?
Yeah, so I went to Plymouth State in New Hampshire, you know, up in the mountains, and I got a degree in environmental science. That was kind of my catalyst, I think, to one, get out west, but also, you know, be in the outdoors. Initially, you know, I always wanted to work for the Forest Service. It's a good deal, and I can really put my degree to use. You know, like that's kind of something I really wanted to do. Plus, I like being outside, I like being in the woods. Initially, I actually applied for some soils jobs for the Forest Service, but because of our current administration and who's in office right now, I won't go any deeper than that. A lot of those jobs with soils and the biological techs, a lot of those jobs kind of are disappearing or getting sequestered, or they're kind of getting combined, so they're hiring less of that. You know, I've heard of like wildland fire. It's not something I never really thought I was going to do, but after that happened with the soils job, it's like, you know, there's a perfect time for me to do it. Get the hike. It's a good schedule. I can work. It's seasonal, 6 months on, 6 months off. I mean, and it's just a good deal, and it worked out in the right time. And yeah, and I love it. I think I'll definitely be doing it for the foreseeable future.
Sick. So what did the education look like in terms of the degree that you have, and then what else did you need to do leading up to the actual position to get into it? Because like, did you need other certifications or something just to get in, or do you get in and then you kind of gain those as you move up in a rank within the system you're in?
Yeah, so my education kind of helped. I had what they call a relevant degree, right? My degree had to do with what job I had. And this is all through the hiring process of the Forest Service, you know, on USA Jobs. It's very objectifying in a sense, but you basically sell yourself based on like what qualifications and certifications and stuff like that you have. You know, I have a relevant degree in environmental science. You know, I know what's going on in the woods in a sense. But then you can go like take fire science in college as well. There's fire science, fire ecology classes. Those are also relevant. But the big thing with being you know, as a wildland firefighter, are your specific classes, which is your basic fire class, your basic, like they call it guard school, you know, it's your basic wildland fire class. And it's about a week long. And so I got the job and then I went to that class. Some people, you know, take those classes in college. It wasn't offered at my school in New Hampshire. Wildland fire isn't like a priority, or it's not really going on in New Hampshire. It's more of a Western, you know, natural hazard, to put it at that, you know. So I got hired on. I got hired, one, because I have a degree, two, well, an irrelevant degree. Two, I'm an EMT, or WWOOFer. I'm a WEMT, Wilderness Emergency Medical Technician. And I just put my resume together, and that's the big thing with the usajobs.gov, your application, you know, getting those keywords. And also just for my internships, you know, using hand tools, using chainsaws. I had some relevant experience too, working trails as for internships, and also having a background and prove I can hike, you know, based on those jobs. So that's kind of like how I got in. From there, you know, I applied, and you apply to duty stations. I applied to pretty much only places, you know, Utah, Idaho, Nevada, that region 4 I was talking about. I was looking to get on a hand crew, a 20-person hand crew. You know, there's some other options, would have been an engine. There's maybe 3 or 4 types of Forest Service engines, or Bureau of Land Management, BLM engines I could have gotten on, but hand crew is what I was looking for. Could do a lot more hiking, more overtime hours, better. I mean, in my opinion, like the jobs in the fire is something I'm more interested in. Instead of, you know, running hose, I'm putting in handline, putting in
Why
saw
were you more
line.
interested in that side of it?
Because I like to hike. I want to run chainsaw,
Gotcha.
and I want to get up big mountains in the middle of nowhere, you know. And they say at the engine, you know, I mean, it is just a vehicle, and engines are pretty. You can do a lot out of an engine, you know, like from hose lays and you know, pump and roll, where you're, you know, it's pretty cool. Like seeing those guys, the engine will be rolling, and have a guy next to it, the hose, like spraying the fire as it rolls down, you know.
Mm-hmm. So and when you say engine, I'm assuming that you're just referring to like what you would think of as a normal firefighting engine that rolls up, huh? Except for it's like more outfitted for the fucking backcountry or something.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like the municipal ones that you might see in town, you know, that you know, your local firefighters. This is more like the ones we have on my forest. They're called Type 6 engines. So they're basically an F550 with carry a few hundred gallons of water. You have the hose on the side, so it carries its own water, and it's a dual. You know, it's got 6 wheels, and it does pretty good off road. You know, or get on some, you know, subpar Forest Service roads that are unmaintained. So that's just access for them. And they're, instead of like 20 people on like a hand crew, an engine will have between like maybe 3 and 6 people on it, a lot smaller module. And also their rotation is a little bit different. So on a crew like mine, initial attack and interagency crew, I'll get called out all the time, and we're on the board a lot. So we'll go out for our 14 days, stay out, because crews are usually in high demand. And it'll be like that for 4, 5, 6 months. Whereas engines, they staff their own forest. So there's a lot more engines, and the way that they're used is a little bit differently. They're kind of more like, in a sense, like a local fire department, where they rotate out and can go out on rolls for those 14-day rolls, or go to different forests and get called different places. But it's a rotation, so a lot of them have to stay home to protect for fires on their own forest or on their own their own dispatch area.
Mm-hmm. That gets crazy. So this was another one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, and I've tried to wrap my head around it before. So I hope we can try and do a decent job about talking about it. It's like just the sheer logistics behind what needs to happen when some of these fires get bigger, and they're pulling from all these different areas to get people on it to help contain it is like mind-boggling to me, because I'm like a visual person, and so hearing you talk about all these different things and how they like function within their own systems, but also have to take care of all this other stuff is just like, it's absolutely nuts to think that like there are, like somebody understands that enough to be like, okay, you're going here, this thing's and just constantly like taking input and figuring out what needs to happen to deal with what's coming at them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like, I know what you're getting at. And that's where like first off, like kind of chain of command, and also the dispatch center is the big thing. It's kind of reported like dispatching police, or dispatching like a municipal ambulance or something like that. You'll hear when the fires start. There'll be a call for new start. Resources, engine 651, engine 611, engine 4611, please respond to a fire at these coordinates. And then they'll roll in, give a size up. It might be pretty small. They might be able to wrap it up in a day. These desert fires and fires that start off the highway. That's like in Nevada. You remember those roads we were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Not to go off a little tangent, but I've been on fires, and a lot of engines get called to fires in medians of highways on I-80 or on the side of highway. Someone flicks a cigarette butt out the window, or someone's dragging their chains and it sparks. Someone doesn't have like a what's it called? Like a spark arrestor on their ATV, and it shoots a spark out and lights up some grass and just gets cooking. It's a little bit of wind, that's a start right there. Without, like on those desert fires, if it's not too windy, maybe they can call in a couple engines, they can wrap it up. They maybe call in a bulldozer, they can just, put a circle around it. Mm-hmm. But it's when, maybe the wind's ripping, okay, that we're going from initial attack where we only need maybe 1 or 2 engines or maybe a bulldozer, and they can wrap it up in a day, maybe, put line around it, get it contained, and then get it secured, which is, make sure everything within that line is cold black, it's burnt, it's not going to burn again. Then, comfortable to walk away and know that thing's not going to jump over a line or something like that,
Yeah. So that's another thing that you mentioned that I thought was interesting too, is like, what are the main reasons why most fires start? Because I know, like, in terms of environmental, it's typically like a lightning strike or something, right? Within like really dry area or a place that has more fuel, versus like a cigarette butt or like something sparking. Like those are the main 3, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't have the statistics, but a lot of fires are human cause. And I'm just thinking back to this year. I think I've probably gone on, of all the fires that went around 20. I think more than half, I'd probably say 15, or say I went on 20 fires. I think 16 of them were human cause. And that's one of them was arson. That was in Nevada, or suspected arson. They're still doing, I think the official, investigation has been released, but it was on this land of some fundamentalists that have known to cause arson fires in the past. Yeah, that was in northern Utah, right around on the border of Idaho and Utah. Runaway campfire down in Pine Valley. Have you been around Pine Valley, a little north of St. George?
I don't think so, no.
Big mountains right behind St. George. They're really cool. That was the coolest fire. I got flown in 10,000 feet. Anyway, sorry, going off on a tangent. But that's a runaway campfire in a wilderness area. When it's hunting season, hunters want to come back to their camp later, so they'll leave their fire going, and they'll come back, or maybe they won't come back because they started a fire. That hunters camp fire, those are pretty common. Common enough anyways. Yeah, I was on this one fire. Some dude was welding his mailbox in like 30-mile-per-hour winds, and bark shot off into some grass, and that ripped. That burned down like 2 cabins, I think. But let's see. Yeah, a lot of runaway campfires. Yeah, spark off an ATV or something like that. Yeah, and then a few lightning fires too, though.
So mostly just people like not really paying attention to what the hell's actually happening around them, and it ends up like turning into ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, no one's going to go out there and start a wildfire,
Yeah. Dang. Okay, so let's back up because I love the tangents, but I want to keep it pushing sort of onward. All right. So you decide you want to get on a hand crew. Then what? How do you? So you send in your application. You kind of get turned into just like a name on a piece of paper, and they go through all your qualifications, whatever. What happens next?
Yeah, so right, I turn my applications. It's all, and if it's it's federal, it's all on that one program, and it all gets sent to this place in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And there they kind of rate you. That it's like a computer goes through based on all the boxes you click and the keywords you use, and they'll rate you like 1 through 4, 1 through 5, or something like that.
Tinder, swipe left or right.
Exactly, and I got lucky. I got some good swipes. I think my first year, just with my applications, I remember I was really worried I wasn't going to get a job because, like I was talking about those quals, right? And like experience and how much schooling you have. When I was in college, I was applying for jobs on the White Mountain National Forest for like trails and rec and stuff. And again, so White Mountain National Forest, there's only a couple national forests in the Northeast. Really competitive get on. And I was not getting these jobs for 3 years in a row. I applied in 3 years in a row. I got that really bad text font, application status. Did not applicable, do not respond. I'm like, screw this. I'm never working for the feds. This is the worst. Yeah. And then I graduated college. And I want to get a soils job. You want to get in the fire. I'm like, I just got to do it. I just got to put my best foot forward. I got to make sure I use all these keywords. You got to scheme it. And I schemed it. And dude, I missed, I remember my first phone call, I missed it. It was for an engine on the Bridger Teton National Forest. I think around Jackson, maybe Kemmer. I missed it. I'm like, oh my God, that's my one chance. I missed my one chance. And I got that second call for Centennial up in Island Park on the Caribou Targhee, right? I got that Centennial hand crew. I remember the guy called me, I think it's Todd, called me. He's like, hey, is this Phil Martin? I'm like, yeah, sure is. Hey, just calling for an interest call. You ranked really high. You're on the top of our stack. I was wondering if you've taken another job already. I'm like, nope.
And you just played it cool, like, damn cool, I'm at the top of the list.
Yeah, I was like, how the heck did I get on top of the list? He's like, yeah, so you're top of the list. And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely still interested. Hand crew? Yep, down. I'm interested in hand crew. He's like, okay, sounds good. And then he keeps talking. I'm like, oh. You just tell me about the job now. And he's like, oh, I forgot to ask. Do you accept the job? I'm like, you offering me a job right now? He's like, yeah. You want the job? I'm like, yeah. Yes, I do want the job. Okay, great. I was like, I didn't even know where Island Park. I had no idea where Island Park, Idaho was either. But I mean, I'm so stoked. I love it. It's the spot. Oh, it's so cool. I love Island Park. But
what's Island Park by? I know like an okay amount of spots in Idaho, but not Island Park.
Yeah, so Island Park, it's right at the corner of Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, where it's so the closest grocery store is probably West Yellowstone, Montana.
Gotcha.
Down. So
like Gardner and stuff, right?
Gardner. I don't know where Gardner is.
Gardner's like the north end of where you would be. Like West Yellowstone's like off to the west, and Gardner's like the north end of the park.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. It's still a little ways, but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So to describe it the best, it's 2 hours south of Bozeman and an hour and a half north of Jackson, Wyoming. It's kind of like the relative area. But I mean, I'm not going to sell it short. It's a pretty great spot. There's only a couple hundred.
There.
Don't go there. Yeah, no, don't go.
No one ever go there.
It's a beautiful forest. Henry's Fork River is right there. A bunch of fly fishing lodges. Man, I love it up there.
You're just plugging it.
Oh yeah, Field Martin, seal of approval.
Boom. There should be many, many more of those in the rest of this, by the way.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we'll check off a few more boxes.
So you got that, you got the job, then what? You ship it out there immediately or what?
No, so I got that phone call. So applications went in January, and then I got that call in February, I think, and then I came on May 12th. was my first day. So between that time, I just got in shape. I had to pass my pack test, and that's the arduous fitness test, and that's what every firefighter needs to pass. You have to. It's 45 pounds, 3 miles in under 45 minutes, and it's pretty simple, but it's just like the kind of like the baseline for all wildland firefighters, at least in the federal sector, have to pass that, and then they go from there. But that's like the easiest thing you do all year. So,
do you know what that's like compared to some of the military like buds or the stuff where you're coming in and getting all that training? It seems somewhat comparable, right?
Slightly. With the Army, it's a little different because they have like a push-up component, and they have a pull-ups and crunches and a run, where for the Forest Service that baseline is the arduous, and then we have our own crew standards, and every crew is different too, and that's where like hotshot crews, they're so well known because of their high physical fitness standards and qualification standards too. So I mean, but again, every crew is different. My crew PTs, and we'll do crew hikes, or we'll do like 3 mile runs, gym hour in the gym, squat kickball or lunge kickball. Yeah, that sounds Fridays. It's great.
That's terrible. That sounds like the exact kind of stuff that I absolutely hate. Cardio, not me.
Cardio? Oh, come on, man.
Not me. Anyway, so you go through that whole deal. What's next?
Yeah. So I got hired. Came on in May. You do critical training. So that's when I was going to like my basic fire school. I did a chainsaw class, and I did a portable pumps class. And then we also kind of have like a lot of people, I was a rookie then last year or 2 years ago. But a lot of people, it's refresher classes for them, kind of a year in review of last year, and then what to expect for this coming season based on trends and based on fuel moistures and snowpack and like kind of factors like that. It's kind of like getting you ready for the season. And from there, we do our classes. And then for a crew like mine, we usually do a couple of weeks of fuels work. So that's like fuels mitigation. We're not on an active fire, but we're prepping things or we're doing projects to prepare for either if a fire is to come, to make it easier to create that fuel break, or we're mitigating excess fuels by burning piles so that it's just less fuel in the ground if a wildfire was to roll through. So this past year we burnt piles. That was kind of the big project. And then the year before that we did a cutting project, which we were cutting fire breaks off Forest Service roads. And that was a good deal because a lot of people got time on a chainsaw. That's like kind of the first time I ran chainsaw cutting specs like that, specifications, 66 feet in, we call it chain. One chain in, you're limbing everything and limbing everything over all trees, over 8 diameters at breast width and or breast height, sorry. And then everything smaller, you're just going to cut down. So it's basically just a thinning project, and that's why when you burn off that road, it'll have less spotting potential, so it'll take better into the main fire, and create that black line and create that break. So that's something you do on fuels work, and because a lot of people don't know about fuels work, and that's really important. That's kind of like kind of playing catch up and also getting ahead of fires. So
crazy. So to back up real quick, you had mentioned that you had started in May. What's a typical season, and does it depend on what zone you're in or what climate, like the area is that you're typically involved with?
Yeah. Region 3, that's Arizona, New Mexico, the southwest.
That's where Dougie's at, I'm assuming?
Yeah, Doug's on Silver City Hot Shots down in New Mexico. So he comes on in like March or April, because that's when stuff starts drying out down there. And so they'll be fighting fires that early. But then the monsoons come, in like June, July time, and starts raining there. So that's when that region, then region 1, so region 3 and region 1 have a swap, so in the early season, before so region 1's Northern Rockies, Montana, that kind of that area, they'll send their crews down to help New Mexico and Arizona. And then when the monsoons come, those crews in Arizona and New Mexico will head up to Montana or other places. Doug was in Doug was in Utah the same time I was in Utah this year, end of June, early July. I think he went to the Pacific Northwest as well. Really good spot, like Oregon, Washington, that region. So yeah, so when their monsoons come, they book it. But then again, you have to remember, so we have something called a 1039 as a seasonal employee. You can only work that many hours in a season. And that comes out to be about 6 months if you're working 40 hours a day, 5 days a week. That comes out to right around 6 months. Does not include overtime.
Dang. So do people typically hit that, or like what happens if you do start to come close to that? They're just like, okay, sorry, like you're done.
Yeah. So like Doug, he ended it, I think end of August or early September. He hit his 1039. So that's when he was done. I came pretty close this year because we started May 13th, and I was short 2 weeks of hitting my 1039. I was finished October 30th, I think. So my 1039 would have been that second pay period, beginning that second pay period in November.
This is another thing that I think most people don't realize is like so that's like 6 months of what is the workload looking like for you in that 6 month period? Like, because I think this is insane to think about for most people, what kind of toll you're putting on your body during that 6 months.
Yeah, so like on my crew, like I said, I'm rolling probably close to 5 months out of the year. I'm on for about 6 months, but rolling on the road. That's 14 days on, 16-hour shifts. For 14 days, and then 2 days off, and usually we're called right back out. It's the middle of summer, and the whole world's on fire. So
that's nuts, absolutely nuts. Yeah, on top of being like just in and around smoke constantly.
Oh yeah,
dirt boy.
Yeah, I don't even smoke cigarettes, but now I feel like I do sometimes. But
does that have any adverse effect? Like, can you feel yourself breathing differently during a part? Like, what does that feel like to go through that entire 6 month process? And like, do you feel changes to your body throughout that period?
I mean, just getting worn down. But at the end of the season, my knees starting to hurt, feet are starting to hurt. And you're packing at least 30 to 40 pounds. I'm packing about 70 because I hike a saw and a med kit. So my pack's right around 70 or 80 pounds. And yeah, I mean, it just wears you down in the season, but I mean, you're still expected to perform. And I'm usually there, and my legs are in good shape. I got my hiking muscles. Honestly, that
those thighs of steel. Field Martin sides of slot.
By the
steel. Seal of approval. Field Martin.
There it is.
Thighs of steel.
But but now it's. I mean, then I get 6 months off. I get to recuperate. I get to go home, see my family for the holidays. I don't have to, worry about flying on those scary days in the airport when everyone else is traveling. I can kind of plan out a little bit better, have a little bit more wiggle room with that. Then I get to, recuperate. And then I can only work, part-time in the winter because I make enough in the summer, based on because it's 16 hours a day again. So half those days are overtime plus your 2 days off, your 2 standard days off. So 2 of those 7 days of the week, I'm getting overtime as well. So I came out, I worked about 1,020 hours this season. On top of that, I got another 930 hours of overtime. So it worked out pretty good, So I can, I work part-time in the winter and I just get back in shape, get my body ready to go. Yeah.
So does the being a federal employee affect your potential to gain like part-time employment in the off season at all? Do you have to worry about that interfering with something else at all?
Do you mean like me so I'm full-time seasonal. I'm on with the Forest Service. So I'm still getting my full-time in the sense I'm getting 40 hours a week, and then seasonally, I'm only working my 6 months. I could get a different job. I could get another job in the federal sector, but they go through that application again, and it wouldn't go because it's a different position. It wouldn't, it'd be a different appointment, right? So I can still I can still maybe work 6 months on this job and 6 months on that job, and since it's different appointments, I can. But I don't want to work for the Forest Service yet year round. I like my winters. I get to go snowboarding, and
you get to get concussions.
Get concussion. Yeah, well, that was part of the plan. But it's okay. I've been taking it easy, hanging with my mom. It's been a good off season, and I'll be back in Utah pretty soon, snowboarding, hit the desert, climb, just get ready for next fire season. So
the desert, I need more of the desert again.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's one of those things where, like, at least for me, when I'm in it for a long period of time, I'm kind of like, dang, this is a little intense. And then the second I get out of it, I'm like, okay, I like visiting, I think is where I'm at with the desert.
The desert, yeah, I'm not a full-time desert rat anymore, but I did enjoy my time in the immersion in that, especially in like beautiful places like the Grand Staircase when I was doing wilderness therapy, like middle of nowhere at the same time.
Okay, so that's another deal. When was the wilderness therapy thing what you were doing in the off season from fire, or did that happen before fire?
That was before fire. So I did that. So let's see, I graduated college in 2015, worked a little bit in New Hampshire, then moved to Utah, and I did a couple others. I had worked a job for a couple months, and I started wilderness therapy. So again, that was me scheming days off. That job was two weeks on, 2 weeks off. So I would put my 2 weeks in a beautiful place, getting paid to hike, and get young minds back on track and become successful members of society. I was in the Grand Staircase, Escalante National Monument, like low-key most beautiful place around. Field Martin, seal of approval. Just backcountry hiking, no trails, just stomping through, schlepping it across crazy mesas and buttes and slot canyons that I never even heard about. It's great. And so I did that for a year. I sometimes work 2 shifts in a row, so I get a month off. It's a good deal. Like, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but and it's something I always kind of wanted to do, but then I wanted to get that job with the Forest Service, and it was a similar stacking time off, that 6 months off, just I just balance it out a little bit differently, and it's working out. So
sounds like it was a pretty sweet transition, though, even though I've heard, like, obviously the way that you describe that makes it sound like it's way more badass at times, I guess, than it actually is when you have some kid get crazy on you and you have to go like track them down, or like deal with someone being a little brat when you're trying to like enjoy where you're at or whatever.
Oh, wilderness therapy. Yeah. I don't know how deep you want to dive into wilderness therapy, but it's pretty wild. As the groups are, I think, beginning, starting off was like, get my feet in the water. It's like, oh, okay, this is what I gotta do. I got, like, it's not about me here. It's about these kids and helping those kids appreciate and get better. And then by, I really hit my groove. I'd say I should make my third shift. I went to this group, and I had a really good co-staff, and we just got these boys going. They were stoked on life. We were all about getting better in our heads, then sending fat mountains and long hikes and busting coals and bow drills, and then kids would come in and they're like, we don't want to hike, like these new kids, and the group was like, no, we're sending it, we're getting after it. And for like maybe like 3 or 4 months I had that group. I'd go back to that group, and like those kids would be there. There'd always be like one of those kids from the initial group, right? And they were just really good kids. And so that was like the golden times of wilderness therapy, where the kids were stoked on life and stoked to get better and stoked to get out of there, but also enjoying the moment and learning and getting better. But yeah, then sometimes you have, like, I don't call them bad groups, but I mean just kind of the difficult groups with different personalities, because I mean, all those kids are there individually to get better, but you still have your group dynamic, and you still have to make it through that day to day, and like clashing personalities and anger management issues. And I have a lot of stories. I don't know if there are any HIPAA violations, but I gotta say, I don't know, I'm not gonna use any names or anything, but I've seen some weird shit out there.
Okay, how about you give us one quick story, and then we'll move on, because we'll have to have that be episode 2.
Okay, episode 2 of the Fielder Martin Sender series.
Yep.
Deluxe. Ooh, one story. Shoot. All right. Okay. Yeah. So we were hiking. So the only reason I really kind of took this job was because that wilderness therapy job was, I thought I was gonna be in the desert, like, oh, it's gonna be sunny, nice and warm in the desert year round. And I was living in Park City in the winter too. So I can 2 weeks in the mountains in the snow, 2 weeks in the desert being warm. No, it was freezing. I got dumped on one time. It snowed for like 3 days straight, just like waist deep in snow. It's like, we have those moments like, what events in my life led me to this moment right now?
Yep.
But the hardest day, the hardest like 3 days of my life, it was not snowing. It was a beautiful day, and we were hiking, and it started dumping out of nowhere. There's a slushy, gnarly dump, and it snowed all that whole rest of that day and all that night. And we got into our camp. We didn't have camp set up, so we're setting up camp in the snow. Everything was soaked. I have a prim pack on. We couldn't use real backpacks. We had to make backpacks that have tarps and like wooden frames that we like tie together with leather and stuff. And man, yeah, so we got to our camp, kind of set up our tarp shelters, no tents, just tarp shelters, got in our sleeping bag, and I woke up the next morning, everything was wet. I was walking around in a t-shirt, thermals, boots with no socks on, like trying to get this fire going, getting busted in a coal. Oh, everything's wet, just blowing in smoke out. We finally got like this little one going, but all the wood was wet. We were chunking these little pieces off with our knives. You got these little tiny little shreds, and then we kind of go out and start smoking. We were all sucking smoke all day, and it was like that for about 2 or 3 days, freezing my ass off. Just I thought I almost quit on the spot and had someone come get me. I've never suffered that hard in my entire life. The hardest day I've ever had on wilderness therapy was harder than any day I've had on fire. I'll leave it at that.
Damn. So yeah, that's the Cliff Notes version of what everyone's going to get in Field Martin Stories Deluxe episodes number 2+.
Yes.
Wow.
I didn't go into the scary kids and let's see what pooping in sleeping bags and stuff. I won't get into pooping in sleeping bags. Save it for next time.
Dear God. Okay, so that was pre-fire. So now you've shipped out to Idaho. You kind of got up to speed a little bit about like the local spots. How does the season start?
Season starts, in Idaho. So we got off that fuels project I was telling you about, and then we get called. We got back. We were doing some stuff in our cache, like our kind of crew area, and we got a call for a fire in Twin Falls, Idaho. We drive down, and it's a desert fire, so burning through brush and grass, and we roll up. I think it's from an arced out power line or something like that. And it was like, I felt like it was in a video game, man. It was like my first fire is pretty revved up. And we roll in, we see the fire kind of blown across the side slope of this mountain, and then kind of on top of this mesa, right? So they kind of had they were using a road. They improved a road, and that was part of the fire break. And they got a dozer line going on it for a little bit, and then it got real rocky, and that's where the crew comes in, right? So dozer can't get up there, engine can't drive up there. So we go and it's called tying in, right? You're making sure all the links in the chain are connected to make the full circle around the fire, because if there's any gap, the fire's not contained. So we tied in from that dozer line into this rock band where it stopped the fire. And I was not on the chainsaw at this point. I was digging handline with my squad. So we had 4 of us digging. Put in a big piece of handline, connected it, and then my squad boss said, "Field, climb up this rock, screen me up with the other squad, and grab a drip torch," which is kind of like this pot. It's got a little wick at the end. You tip it over, you light the wick, and it's kind of like a little flamethrower, but it doesn't shoot flames, just tip flames over, right? So I get up there and I see JD, the other squad boss. I'm like, "JD, what's up?" He's like, "Grab that drip torch, screw it on, get ready to go." I'm like, "Okay, what's up?" He's like, "All right, we're gonna burn off," right? So back burning. So I'm on the piece of handline the other squad put in, and they tied in the rock screw. So I start burning down from the edge of the fire, and then I was on the handline, started walking down the handline, just tipping the fire, and it would start pulling uphill, right? It started pulling into the main fire and just burning out all the fuel in between me and the main fire off the handline. Is this making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Am I painting the right picture? So yeah,
Yep.
I'm basically standing on the handline. I'm walking down the handline with my drip torch, tipping it over, it landed on the ground, and the fire would start going. The fuels just dried out. So it was pulling uphill away from the handline into the main fire. And I walked it all the way back down the dozer line. It kept pulling to the main fire, and just like that, the fire had nothing else to eat up. It was
And so the reason that you're doing that is it because how am I trying to explain this? So the wind is pushing the fire that you're creating back into the other fire. Is it because that fire pushes back into the other one that stops it? Or is it because it's burned all the fuel there that the fire coming toward you can't keep going, or both?
Kind of both. So
Okay.
the main reason we're burning off is so we can put our hand line in, right? But there's still a bunch of fuel unburnt from the main fire to the hand line, right? Well,
Yep.
if a big gust comes, it can easily blow
Jump it.
the fire, yeah, right over the line. So we're burning that fuel on our own terms, right? So we put
Gotcha.
that hand line in, and also usually, fire has a tendency to go uphill. It'll kind of run uphill and then back downhill, or kind of chunk down really slowly. And unless you have a
Interesting.
diurnal wind, which we can get into, but it's kind of a lot to explain. But yeah, so basically, where I'm burning up on the downhill side and just ripping right up into the main
Mhm.
fire that way. And now that fire, it's not doing anything anymore. We burnt all the fuel off. That fire is, in a sense, it's out. It's just a bunch of black earth now, scorched earth,
Mhm.
really. And that was like the exciting part. So that was the first day we got there. Do you have any questions about burning off to kind of explain that all right?
I think I might have more as we get into other ones. So does fire free? So you were saying that the fire typically will burn up. Is that regardless of wind, or is that what you were kind of talking about with things getting a little more crazy? Like if there's a wind coming at it,
Mhm.
or I'm assuming if there's like a canyon or a mountain, like the wind's typically going up it anyway.
Correct. Yes. Usually, and just how fuel is oriented, right? So if you, when I say fuel, I mean grass, brush,
Anything that burns.
trees. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole like different classifications for fuel. In this case, we're just talking grass and brush. So when I'm downhill and I put the fire on the ground, because how it's oriented, that it's going to want to pull uphill because of gravity, or like the flame is just reaching uphill and it's igniting
Okay.
stuff in
Okay.
front of it.
Gotcha.
So that and the wind usually, yeah, will blow up canyon. Then you have the diurnal winds, and that kind of depends on what time of day it is and how strong the diurnal winds will be. But there's a whole chart I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's basically because of like at night and shading and change in pressures when you'll have diurnal downhill winds, and it's something you need to take into account. Because wind's usually a major factor in fires, and that's wind shifts, like gusty outflows from like thunderstorms or something like that. Those are gusty erratic winds, and they can blow in all directions. That's like a watch
Mhm.
out. You got to get out of there because there can be a big head, like a fire with a head of steam coming right at you just from a gusty outflow wind. So it's something you have to take into account. But usually, and that's usually like when they're coming based on what time it is, though, if they are going to come. And the only other time, the big watch out too. Have you heard of a phone wind?
Mhm.
Have you heard of the Santa Ana winds in California? So
Yes.
Santa Ana phone wind, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's basically because you only have it in certain areas. Some other ones like the Santa Ana winds, the Chinook winds out in Colorado, or the Wasatch winds in Utah. That's a gusty downhill wind, and that's basically because of it has a lot to do. It's hard to explain, but like pressure and
Mhm.
temperature moving from low and high elevations, and different amounts of moisture too. It's kind of in depth. I need to look at something to explain it honestly, but Santa Ana winds, that's the big thing with those fires in California. You get those are all blowing down off the Sierra Nevadas towards the ocean, and they don't let up for a couple days, and they're usually pretty strong, sustained winds, and that's why some of those, maybe not the only reason, obviously, but that's one
Mhm.
reason, a big factor in those fires in California, why they're so devastating.
Is
But
because it's constantly blowing. Because so I'm assuming normally you tend to get a sort of a break at night when what is it, the temperature, the pressures change and things kind of die down, but that doesn't happen with that kind of wind.
a phone wind, usually not. And I'm not an expert, but I mean, that's the phone wind, it's a local wind, that Santa Ana wind. That's blowing downhill, down canyon, sustained for up to days at a time.
Okay.
But yeah, even at night, like we're around where we are, in the Great Basin region 4, nighttime is usually the off shift, or I mean, there will be a night shift, but because of lowering temperatures and higher relative humidities, the fire behavior will be less, or less drastic than during the day when the sun's beaming down overhead.
Mhm. Gotcha. Okay, so That's your first fire. What happens next? Do you have this just all completely logged in your head? Like, does it ever, do the fires ever kind of start to get jumbled, or are you like, no, I understand like the entire chronology of this whole thing, and you have each one seared in your brain?
Well, I mean, I have like a crazy memory, you know, I kind of remember everything, even with all these concussions. But I mean, no, I mean, definitely like just talking to people like my squad boss. There's like their eighth, ninth year, you know, like some. I mean, I'm sure they start blending together, and even like 2 seasons ago, you know, it's a little blurred. But I mean, I think I can name it. You know, every fire I was on for the past two seasons, you know. But yeah, and that was, you know, that's my first fire, and it's pretty cool. But again, again, that's kind of like the fun, cool part of it. You know, you're burning off, you're putting the hand line, you're running, gunning, right, and that's just like, you know, I'd say like 10-20% of the fighting a fire. If you're looking for if you're like looking at the fire from start to finish, you know, that's the first like 10-20%. The rest of it is what we call mopping up, cold trail, hot spot, and that is where it gets a little monotonous sometimes.
So what's involved with that?
So okay, so yeah, so this fire, this is a good textbook fire, right? So we put you know, we had the road, we had the dozer line, we had our hand line, and we burnt off it, right? So we just contain the fire is now in a sense contained. We have a full circle around it, and there's nothing else really burning in there. There's some stump holes, right? There's some stump hole, like sagebrush stump holes, and some bushes, and there's still some heat in the ground, you know. And that's the next thing you need to take care of, securing the edge, right? So we have our edge where the hand line meets the black. And from there, we usually start maybe 10, we'll do like a grid. We call it a grid. So you'll line up off the hand line into the black, let's say spacing of 5 feet, and we'll go maybe 50 feet in, right? And from there, we'll walk all the way around the fire. Maybe not just my squad, but like my squad, the other squad, maybe an engine will be on the edge too. And basically what we're doing is securing the edge so there's no flare-ups, because something like that in the stump hole, that's still holding a lot of heat. Well, if a gust of wind comes through and blows some sparks or embers across the line, then that fire could start running again. So that's why we need to secure the edge. And that's kind of like that's a lot of what fighting fires is securing, right? So on that next morning, we lined up and we had our chunk of line, and we started at maybe like secure up to 25 feet in. And that involved, you know, walking, feeling the ground, you know, putting your hand down stump holes. And it kind of stinks sometimes because you don't know if there's gonna be heat down there. Sometimes you'll put your hand down a hole, it's like, oh, it's cold, keep moving, you know. And sometimes it's
like noodling, but sticking your hand into a giant furnace.
I love that. Yeah, it is like noodling. Yeah, man.
Noodling.
One time I was walking, I stepped in this ash pit. I had no idea, and I burnt my leg pretty good. It's like sunk in. Yeah, it was this big stump hole. The whole stump was burnt though. It was all ash, but it's still holding a lot of heat. But so yeah, say we find something like that, you know, if there's an engineer by and they can get hose to us, you know, we'll spray some water in there, mix it up. We'll make some mud, mix it up, and maybe call it good, because we'll grid this maybe 2 or 3, 4 times depending on how hot and how much heat is holding, right? Mm-hmm. So what we'll do is, you know, we'll go in, if there's no water, you know, we'll rip it open, we'll kind of scrape the ends off whatever's burning, or mix it with dirt, because dirt doesn't burn, you know, and that's why we dig handline. When we're digging handline, we're scraping away the organic layer of soil, so when the fire hits it, it can't burn any farther, right? So
yeah, so I guess that's probably a good thing to explain too to someone that doesn't necessarily understand what a handline is. You're basically just taking tools and scraping and destroying everything on the ground to the point where it's just dirt, so that nothing can burn in that spot, essentially.
Exactly. So when the fire hits the line, or, you know, or we burn off that line, we don't have to worry. That line is a break. There's nothing burning to the other side. So that involves, yeah, scraping off all the organic soil. So we're down to mineral soil, and also cutting any roots or stumps out of that area so that it doesn't burn down through the root and pop up on the other side, which, you know, it's happened before.
That's insane. I didn't even think about something like that.
Yeah, right. So that's why. So usually, you know, I'll have Pulaski's up front. They're breaking the line, and then if there's any roots, they're swinging their axe. So Pulaski's got a grubber on one end for digging line, then an axe on the other side for cutting roots or trees or limbs or something like that. They'll have like a scrape tool, you know, like a hoe. It's kind of like a hoe, or like a adze hoe, or a rhino rogue hoe, something like that. And that's good because you got a lot of surface area. You can pull a lot of dirt off with it. It's not great for breaking line because it's not that it doesn't have that weight, and it can't like break the line. But once the line's broken, you start scraping stuff out with the rogue hose. It's really nice.
Gotcha.
So yeah, digging handline. That's what digging handline is. Sometimes you'll dig, you just connect the dots again. So your handline to this, then handline to that. Connect this piece of handline to this rock screed, to that handline, to that dozer line. Oh, you got a circle. And then we can talk about saw line too, right? So we'll cut saw line. Say we're in the desert like that, all the brush up to like 30 feet in, maybe we'll cut all the brush on the black side. Black side's the sides of fire on the hand line, and the other side we call the green side. We might cut a little bit, a couple feet in on that side, just so it doesn't blow over and connect. And that's just clearing out the more vertically oriented fuels that will have longer flame lengths that can bend over the line, right, and hold a lot more heat. That's why we're kind of mitigating that as well. So that's just on a desert fire.
Gotcha. So then, I don't even know where to go from there. There's just so much involved with it. So I guess go into it like a story of like another fire that was like a good learning experience. So you have that first one down where you kind of got your feet wet with the drip torch, and it was that sounds like a pretty good first experience with the fire. Like nothing got nuts, and it was a good learning experience. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, so let's call that, we went direct on that. We went directly, it's called going direct on the fire, right? So we went in and we were right next to the fire, scraping the hand line. I mean, a little bit was indirect because I told you like we burned off, but like we were working right next to fire, flames in our face, like scraping hand line and burning off and stuff. And then I'll go to another fire that season. It was in Montana. It was called the Myers Fire, and that was a big timber fire blowing up. And that one was cool because it's a beautiful area, but I didn't see a single lick of flame that whole 2 weeks. We went indirect on that, so we're making fire breaks far away. We're doing a big box, so it's a lot safer because when the fire is blowing up in thick timber like that, it has potential for crown runs or
what's a crown run?
So that's when in a forest, right? So the fire is going to move in the ground mostly. It's going to move through grasses and brush in the ground, maybe move through dead and down, travel that way, and then you might have isolated torching, right? So if there's some brush or grass underneath a tree, it'll climb up in the limbs and torch a tree out, and you can see, they're a big black smoke, but a crown run is kind of when it gets established. So a lot of trees are getting torched out, and they're moving the ground. Trees are getting torched out in big clusters, right? And then a crown run, maybe it's blowing like a sustained crown run. The fire is now traveling instead of on the ground, crawling up trees. It's now blowing across the tops of the trees, jumping from tree to tree, not even moving on the ground anymore, which is pretty rare, but it does happen. I've seen it. It's pretty impressive.
And this is what was crazy to me when we had first started talking about this when we first met, was like how fire behaves. Because it's one of those things where I feel like you, at some point, as a human, get an understanding of how water behaves in a large amount, or like how wind kind of behaves in certain environments or whatever. I feel like fire is that last thing where you don't think of fire as like this living, breathing thing that moves and travels and changes, and like that was the first real situation that you had explained to me where I was like, wow, that it can travel in different ways across a landscape. It can jump to the top of trees and shoot across to a different spot that way.
Yeah, and fire is dynamic. What we learn in class, I just took my intermediate fire behavior class, and that's kind of where we went in. So basically, we have what we call the fire triangle, right? The three things fire needs to survive, and that's fuel, combustion or ignition, and oxygen, right? And that's what, without one, there will be no fire. There might be smoldering and smoke, but you need something to burn, something to make it burn, and then air for it to survive, right? Then we have what we call our second fire triangle, and that is, let me think about it for a sec. It's fuels, topography or environment, and weather. I think those are the three pieces. I'm a little rusty. So your fuel type, right? What do you have? Is it trees? Is it brush? Is it grass? Is it logging slash, right? And where are you on? Are you on flat ground? Are you in a canyon? Are you, what mountains are you in? Are you in like steep, like gullies and like in the Salmon Chalice, you know, it's notorious fire country because it's how burly, gnarly the terrain is. Or you might, you know, it might be in like the Snake River Plain. It's pretty flat, but you can still get, and then you can get like different types of weather too. I need to collect my thoughts. Okay, so yeah, right. So weather too, you know, in mountain mountainous terrain, right? You know, like we were talking about, you have torching out bowls, right? Shooting up mountains and then backing down, you know, back down the mountain, hit the bottom of the valley, shoot back up, make an uphill run, you know, torch out a whole little like it's like a carburetor, you know, just makes a little, it's like a little slot, and the wind just rips up that, torch everything out, and gets to the other side, you know, back down, back down, back down, chunk its way down again, you know, get some roll out, rip up the other side, you know, it's, or you can have like wind, like what we see in Nevada a lot, like when I was talking about the, you know, chains dragging, throwing sparks, you know, if it's a little bit windy, we call it wind-driven fire, right? It's just ripping through the grass. It's really fine fuel. It moves in a line, you know, you can see the path the wind pushed it, you know, and that could run for miles and moves pretty quick, you know.
Okay, so let's back up. So you got to the crown thing, and I pulled you off. So what was that in relation to? You're talking about the other fire that you were getting into.
Yeah, so that fire is having, we went big box because it started having sustained crown runs. It blew up one day, you know. We have like it's the period of time in the day, and this is usually when it happens, right? It's between like 1 and 3, maybe, or 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and that's the witching hour. That's when stuff's, you know, the sun's been hot.
That's incredibly scary that it's called the witching hour.
Yeah, right. Everything's getting dried out. Humidities are low, temperatures are high. The fuel's dried out. Things are prime, ready to go. And that's when, you know, fires, you're gonna have more extreme or more active fire behavior, right? Because and that's what's crazy, you know. I'll just like kind of explain a desert fire I was on one time. Is like this thing was ripping, you know, it was running, gunning, ripping across. But once the sun went down, there weren't any flames. Like it was black. Don't get me wrong. Like we still have to secure the edge. It's not completely out, but like the fire is not progressing once the sun went down because the humidities went up and affected those fine fuels, which are really susceptible to change in humidity, right? Because then, you know, next morning you have a piece contained. Oh, one little ember, one little yeah, and just start ripping again. Yeah. And that's happened before. It just kind of stinks. You think, oh, okay, yeah, we're working. Oh, you like look on the other side. Like that happened this past season. I was in Du Bois, Idaho. We were working on this one piece of line. It was pretty calm. It wasn't really flaring up or anything. But on the other side of this ridge, you can just see this massive column just wind blown, and it was just ripping, and it really took off. And that's all, you know. The fire is, again, like that morning we woke up and you couldn't see any flames, like a little smoking here and there, but no flames. Then by like 1 o'clock, it just started cooking again. It's a piece of fire we didn't make it to yet, you know.
How often do you find yourself in the mindset of, wow, there, like anything could kind of get nuts at any point in this situation? You know, like how often do you have to really be alert versus letting your guard down a little bit?
You know, I would say you always have to be alert. It sounds kind of, you know, corny, but I mean, shit happens, man. And it, you know, when you've been mopping up, like you already said, we have to secure the edge, right? Sometimes we do that for 3, 4, 5 days, and it's like mind numbing. You don't see any flames. You walk the same piece of ground 5 times and don't feel any heat, but you know, you want to make it through one more burn period, one more potential, like, say, we call it death watch. You know, you made your rounds, you've walked through, you've mopped up, hot spot, you cold trailed 66 or 100 feet depth off the line all the way around it 3 times and found no heat. And even, you know, even on that 3rd day of doing that, you know, finding no heat, it's like, all right, well, it's pretty windy right now. Okay, I'm in some solid black. There's a good safety zone. Anyway, there is a patch of kind of like bigger brush, like chaparral. We didn't cut it all up. Like, you know, what if something did get in there, you know, like what if it does blow across, you know, and I'm responsible. I take pride in that, you know. I like to think everyone in my crew does, and all firefighters, you know, like, all right, we need to check this. We should watch it. We were finding heat in here, and there's heat lasted long in this. We should definitely watch this spot, watch this area, you know. And that's, you know, but yeah, and sometimes, you know, in that death watch, you know, you do your rounds and you sit at the truck, read a book, and, you know, find some shade, you know. It's still like, all right, I mean, there's definitely still heat out there. you see smoke going up. It's like, wow, what if we miss something?
Mhm.
I'd say that's kind of a mouthful, but my guard's usually always my guard is always up. But when when there's fire in my face, that's obviously a little more present than just mopping up in the black and not seeing fire for a few days. So
Mhm. That's another good point that you brought up is the safety side of things and making sure that you understand like what your way out is if shit were to hit the fan. Is there a story that you have in relation to that where something got hairy or you either like set up something the right way or maybe the wrong way and ended up making it out of it?
yeah, so I guess I'll go over the LCEs real quick, which is staple of wildland fire. So LCES is lookouts, communications, escape routes, and safety zones. So lookouts, and this is like everyone, this is all firefighters. They don't hit the line till that's covered, right? So on my crew, Centennial always has a lookout. We're sending our assistant crew boss, Randy. He's going to go up on this hill. He has eyes on the fire, and he'll be in communication. So comms. We have our channels. We have our crew channel that we can all talk to each other. Our 20 people can talk to each other, right?
And these are walkie-talkies, right?
Radios, yeah,
Radios.
Index Kings radios, yep. Pretty high tech stuff. Yeah, they're great. And it's pretty good range. Even a couple miles away. The ridge, being on the other side of mountains, might mess you up a little bit. But yeah. So we have a lookout. He's going to keep eyes on the fire. He can tell us any activity. He's going to tell us anything we need to know. He's going to let us know. That's his one job. He's not putting in hand line. He's not cutting anything down with chainsaws. He's awake. He's got binoculars, maybe, probably sitting up there scanning. He's like, lookout that's this very serious job, and it's. Some people are like, oh, they're not doing anything, but no, it's serious. I take it very seriously. All right, comms. So covered comms, being in communication with our crew, being in communication with our, task force or division leader, right? He'll tell us or like kind of what we're doing, where we're going, what's going on with the fire too. So communications, it's important. If we need to get out, anyone can call us and tell us, stop what you're doing, get out, leave, right? So. And that's kind of where the chain of command comes in too. Is someone's going to be there. We're going to know we need to get out, and that's what. And when that doesn't happen, there's some type of breakdown. When you hear about these tragedy fires, escape routes. We establish escape routes, right? So okay, we're working this piece of line. Sometimes as vague as down and out. Just you can see the trucks. Just follow the hand line you put in. Follow the hand line out to the trucks. We're going to drive out, or our escape route. You're going to. So we're working this way, but if you walk back, we'll flag it, use flagging, flag it out through the forest, bright flagging so you can see where the escape route is, right? So escape routes to and that'll bring you to a safety zone. That's a place where the idea is you can sit there in a lawn chair and shorts and and the fire can be blown up around you. You can be sitting there drinking a soda or other beverage of your choice and not have to worry about it. That's the ideal, that's what a safety zone is. You can be surrounded by fire, right, and be fine, And sometimes we push it a little bit. Sometimes we create our own safety zones, right? We'll put safety zones in the black. That's not going to burn again, so we can just go into the black. And sometimes we say, 1 foot in the black. Black's the safety zone, right? We can go in there. If anything happens, just look at black, and you're there. We're working around the edge. Just get in the black, So that's a safety zone. Again, safety zone, not to be confused with a deployment site. That are two very different things. And we can talk about deployments a little bit. And that's, when you need to pull your fire shelter out, clear out anything around you. That's the last ditch. You're not outrun this fire. You need to hunker down, dig a little hole for yourself, clear out what you can, and pray, I guess. Believe in that fire shelter. Again, that's a deployment site. I've never had to deploy. That's all I really have to say about deploying right now. So, but
probably a good thing.
So that's LCEs. We got LCS covered. Let's see. I'll bring you to Gutzler Fire, Colorado, 2017. That's a good one. That was pretty cool. So we kind of got this fire. It's pretty cool. We got there and we were in some timber in the White River National Forest, beautiful land. And the fire is kind of cooking this valley, right? One side of the valley, we didn't have to worry about putting line in. There's a rock band. It was contained on that. It was going to be contained on that side. And then on the side we were working on, it was kind of like on this other side of the ridge. When we got there, we couldn't see the fire. Again, our assistant, he went up to a ridge. He was our lookout. He was looking down for us. We can kind of see the column. It's kind of taking chunks out. We can see a column rising on the other side of the canyon, right? But we couldn't see the fire. And we were connecting some stringers, some timber stringers would come down, and we were just connecting some meadows. So the meadows were pretty wet; they weren't burning. So we were tying the timber stringers into the meadows. We were cutting our saw line, putting our hand line in, and then we connect it to meadow. Then we go to the next band of trees, stringer of trees, do the same thing until we connect it into a rock scree, right? So that's the mission. I wouldn't say it was relaxed, but it wasn't like we weren't like running, it was like, okay, let's cut this line. All right. So me and my saw partner, Dave, we were in this aspen stringer, and we stopped, took lunch, drank some water. We were in there for like maybe 20 minutes, taking a quick break. And then we were done with that piece, and we popped out this timber stringer. And I remember looking up and like, wow, that column got a lot bigger, and it's like on top of this ridge now. And we radioed to our crew. The rest of our crew was ahead of us. We were leapfrogging each other. I'm like, hey, Hawkins, what's going on up there? This column looks pretty big. He's like, oh yeah, we're just punching line, bump past Taylor, and you guys were plugging there. We're like, all right, yeah, sounds good. And we're hiking. Me and Dave are hiking to the next timber stringer, and then we hear on the radio like, "Hey guys, the fire crested over the ridge. It's time to use the escape route. Get out!" And then we see our whole crew lined out, all like 15 people, just like come back at us, like, "Hey guys," like, "Hey, we're leaving." We're like, "Okay." It was like jump to the line, and then went to our safety zone, and we watched this thing blow up. Looked like a nuke went off. Just ripping, sustained crown run. Like flames on the top of the trees just running, like, oh man, like a wall of smoke a couple 100 feet high, dude. It was and that was the next fire zone after the one I just told you about. So this is all in the first 2 weeks of me ever fighting fire. And I watched the most impressive crank of a column make this massive push. And we were on safety zone, and then started pushing. We kind of hit those meadows and still pushing down the stringers and we bumped out to another safety zone, and we just that was at like 2 o'clock. We just sat, and it was so impressive, Nick. We just sat and watched that thing blow up, and then sun went down, cooled off a little bit, and
jeez. So what is that like, sitting there knowing that I'm assuming there's got to be a part in the back of your head that's being like, am I really safe in this spot? But also like, what is it? Because even in some of the videos that you were showing me of some of these bigger ones, you can feel the phone rumbling, and I'm not even there. I'm looking at it through a phone, which is however many 100 feet away from wherever the fire is. It's like, what is it like when you're that close to it?
Yeah, Nick, it's crazy because you can hear it. It's like a thunder rumbling, and it kind of has this like this strange wind. The wind's kind of sucking into it because at this point, like the fire's kind of creating its own weather based on like the pressure differentials and the heat it's creating. And this column's a couple 100 feet high. Looks like a nuke went off or something. It was wild, and it was just I was just so in awe, really, just watch, like, for the first time seeing a column that close, a couple 100 yards away from me. I was just like, whoa. Then of course we all had our phones out. We're like, holy shit, just like chip, chip, chip. Everyone taking pictures and videos. There's helicopters flying around doing bucket drops. It was just impressive. But I was not that I wasn't scared. It was more like awe, but I trust my supervisor. I trust my crew boss, assistant crew boss, squad bosses. I trust them. I'll follow them pretty much anywhere, and I'll trust what they say.
You have to, because that's your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do, and I've never felt like if I ever did, I would say, hey, I'm not doing this, and here's why. And there's a way to turn down an assignment. You just have to go through this checklist. But I'd follow my squad bosses and crew bosses anywhere they ask me to go. I feel really comfortable and confident and safe with them, and it's really nice. They're family, and I know they wouldn't put me somewhere where they wouldn't go. So that's kind of where I'm at with that right now.
Yeah. So then, what's it like? You get a couple of those under your belt. You're starting to see completely different situations of how fire is behaving in within each role that you're on. How does that start to look over time? Because there's got to be certain things that you're seeing where you can pull patterns out and be like, okay, typically it would behave this way. But then there's also got to be things that you see where you're like, Jesus, I've never seen that happen before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I I think the fire behavior and just watching how fire moves through different landscapes and through different fuels, it's one of those things you gotta like. I can learn about it in a class and I can explain it to you, but you're not gonna really know or understand until you're like up there close watching fire, move through this dead down log like someone's smoking a cigar, and then hit another log and then move through, and then watch it like crawl up a tree. And this is like I've seen like when I saw that, I was in the salmon shallows this past summer, and it wasn't extreme fire behavior. It was moving through the forest floor, right? It was crawling along these dead and down, and there's a lot of beetle kill in there, a lot of dead and down, standing dead too. I think it's where we were is close to 70% dead and down, and just watching how fire is like and how it moves and moves through even like a landscape, watching it like cook out a bowl, have an uphill run in like a box canyon or something like that, and just nuke it out. That's when things line up, because a fire could be creeping along, and then oh, the sun's on this piece of the slope and aspect is on this, like hitting this just like this, and it's super hot in the day and super dry, and you have this type of fuel here, and it's called things just line up, and boom, you have like a crazy uphill nuke and run, or maybe on the north side of a slope, oh, it's not really doing too much. It's kind of cooler on that side, and that's when you kind of get closer. And that's what I was seeing, seeing how fire moves through a forest. It's pretty cool, because it's not just like one wall of flames moving through, it's creeping through here, crawling through this, torching this tree out, Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Which is wild, because there's got to be times where it's moving in a way that you didn't expect, and so now all of a sudden you have to shift your focus in order to contain it more and keep it from going in a certain spot. And there's also got to be times where, you get in front of it and it works, but also times where it doesn't at all and it just takes off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like so on that fire, that one was interesting because it wasn't moving through the grass at all. I don't know why, but it was only moving through those dead and down logs lying over. So we weren't putting really where we were in that particular day. We weren't putting handline in. We were going in, cutting the ends off of burning dead and down logs and throwing them into the black, and that slowed it down long enough for us to establish like kind of our next plan, where we put this handline in. We're going to burn off this handline that's going to pull into the main fire. That's what we ended up doing. But yeah, when we got there, we're like, all right, hit this piece of line. This will slow it down enough. Just throw all the cigarette, the cigar butts in. Is kind of what it's called. The ends that are still burning on this log. Cut them all up. Clear out around clear the ladder fuels. All those low hanging limbs where fire can get established, and vertically oriented fuels, and just rip up and have a tree torch out. And that's kind of what we're doing. That was really cool to see that fire behavior.
Crazy. So what's next? What comes after that? I'm assuming you got to look back and think of certain fires where you learn certain things, or certain fires where they were the biggest, or there's got to be defining characteristics of each one that make you remember them more so than others, right?
Yeah, I'd say, and that's what kind of sticks out. And again, I guess I'll kind of go into not all fires are crazy, like like burning off and ripping chainsaw and putting scary saw line. A lot of them is kind of establishing like secure. That's the main goal is to secure the edge, right? Secure it and make sure that the fire is contained, secured, and not going anywhere, right? And I was thinking about one roll. It wasn't anything special. I think I went 14 days and didn't see a single flame length, but I got flown in a couple times. At 14 days, I think we were in Nevada most of the time. 6 different fires. It'd roll up. The fires went out at night, and that kind of pushed me, because it wasn't exciting. It got pretty monotonous at the end. 14 days of mopping up, 14 days of walking circles around fires, finding little heats, exposing them, letting the cold night air take care of it, or getting some water on it. But with that being said, that's when I started taking pride in it. It's like, okay, let's hit. This is our job right now. This is my second year in fire too, so it's kind of like this is what it's all about. I'm lucky when I get to run a drip torch, or get to see extreme fire behavior, and get to put in fat saw line, hand line. This is my job right now, and I'm going to take pride in making sure this edge is the edge is secure and the fire is contained. and that was kind of like a mental struggle for me, you know, where the other ones are like physical, you know, physical. I gotta like haul ass with a 70 pounds up this mountain, you know, the chainsaw gripping it and like just raging for like a couple hours, you know.
Seems like it's pretty applicable to life, like taking what you were just saying there and applying it to each individual moment you're in, like, this is my job right now. Because there's sometimes where shit's not exciting, and there's sometimes when it's all blown up in your face.
Oh yeah, man, of course. I mean, it's not like, I mean, you're not like at, I don't know, Odessa every day, you know. It sucks. I don't want to rip gnarly chainsaw all day every day for 6 months straight. I'll lose it. You know, I kind of like that. I mean, you know, but that's the thing. You have to be flexible. You know, you never. I mean, sometimes, yeah. I mean, it has been like that. Where, let's go back to Salmon Chalice. You know, 14 days is freaking. Well, that one was gnarly because we did end up taking some breaks, but that's because we would start working at like 8 in the morning, punching this fat saw line, hiking up these super steep mountains. By noon, the fire blew up, and it was about to, like, the fire was moving so fast that our lines became irrelevant because it's going to blow over it because we weren't going to we weren't going to tie in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, oh, for like a week straight, we did that, where we'd go and start putting this piece of line. We get like halfway there, like, no, pull off. You got the fire's approaching, gotta go. And then we just drive back down, sit the trucks, watch this thing. It just felt kind of futile at one point. It's like,
yeah,
man,
why are we doing this when it's just getting destroyed every single time we try and do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it happens, but you know, I mean, but like, again, like our incident management teams, they know what they're doing, you know, and sometimes shit happens, you know, like, okay, yeah, it sucks. We got chased up the hill like 3-4 times, but you know, let's get back after it. Let's try something new. Let's try to connect these dots, you know, let's do some point protection and go from there. Let's put ourselves in a place where we can win, you know.
That's a good segue to what's been happening out west within the last couple of years. It's like, I think from an outside perspective, you get this thing of like the entire West is on fire, and, you know, global warming, all this stuff, and we're all going to fucking die type of thing. What does that look like from your end, and what are some common misconceptions of what's actually happening with some of these fires that are being reported on?
Yeah, you have to be careful because, again, I am a federal employee, so you know, so make it clear that we're raking our forests the best we can, sir. Yeah, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, fires out west, or at least in California, though, these big tragedy fires of communities burning down, you know, those are pretty massive fires, and they're impressive, you know, and like I said, things lining up, right, for extreme fire behaviors, things lining up, you know, like that terrain, and there's local winds, there's Santa Ana winds. The fact that it was super dry out there, you know, and super windy, you know, it's where the starts are so close to communities, you know, and there's only so much you can do once fires are jumping from house to house, you know. I can't go in, and like my crew can't go in and put in handline, you know. You kind of, that's when other kind of resources have to come in, and you can only do so much. You can only put people in so dangerous of situations, you know. Like, it's unfortunate that houses are going to burn down, you know, and it's going to happen, but I mean, no one's going to die you can't expect anyone to die to save a house, you know. And that's kind of my sense in it. And again, it's unfortunate communities are burning down, and it does have to do with maybe our forest management and how fires have been managed in the past 100 years. And
yeah,
also,
so let's go into that a little bit. Like, it's from what I understand, it's mainly due to fuels mitigation. Like, prior to what is it, like in the 70s or something, like when a lot of these programs first started, they weren't really dealing with the fuels because they would put out the fire like almost immediately, and so a lot of these areas just continued developing more and more fuel, and now that's a big part of what's contributing to like how massive these fires are getting. Is that a valid understanding of part of it?
Yeah, it definitely is. And yeah, so let's talk about fuel loading, and what's kind of been going on with the Forest Service for the past 100 years or so. So the kind of the consensus was, or the orders for firefighters were, you know, get the fires put out by 10 o'clock. Day of fire starts. Okay, it's got to be out, secured by 10 a.m. the next day, right? I think it's 10 a.m. Yeah, they call them 10 o'clock fires. You know, they're going to be out in like 24 hours. So suppression is all about suppression. After, have you read the book The Big Burn?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I think I got it right here. Ooh, Big Burn by Timothy Egan.
I'm gonna have to write that down. Noted.
Subtitled Teddy Roosevelt and the Fire That Saved America. So let's talk about that. Big Burn is this massive, I want to say like 3 million acre fire that ripped across Idaho and Montana in like 1910, I want to say, maybe a little bit before. Let's pull some facts. I'm not just.
So were there systems in place when I said the 70s? Am I pulling that out of my ass, or is that?
Well, that was still in place then.
Okay.
But it's put in place. So yeah, this is the big fire that kind of started the Forest Service and
Okay.
fire suppression. August 20th, 1910, pulled that off of the back of the Big Burn.
Wow.
So basically what happened is this massive fire ripped through, a huge tragedy fire, killed a lot of people, burnt down towns. It did that in 3 days. So just think this, like the state of Connecticut burnt in Idaho and Montana in 3 days about. So after that, you know, America kind of declared war on forest fires. Okay. And from then on, it was like, okay, we're going to suppress these fires, even though fires are part of the ecology of the Mountain West. You know, fires are, you know, they burn, forests take care of themselves. And back then, fires weren't as usually, not including this Big Burn, where things obviously lined up for the worst, just cranked out some destruction. But again, you know, these fires weren't that big, but they kind of mitigated. They kind of just managed themselves, burning fuel that needed to be burnt, you know. And these fires weren't a lot of crown runs, you know, just kind of burning the herbaceous layer, the ground fuels up, right? So when we started suppressing fires, making them as small as possible, that allowed fuels to, you know, collect, dead and down fuels to collect in the ground and slowly build up. So it's fuel loading. There's that much more fuel in the ground. So when a fire does eventually come through, it has that much more, you know, gasoline to rip, right? And that's causing that's torching out trees. You know, trees can usually survive. Trees will survive just ground fire and burning around it, right? But when it torches the whole you know, crown out, it torches all its needles out, that tree's dead. So that's one thing that's going on. And it's, just fuel loading. It's when fires are blown up that big, you know, it's creating that much more heat, and it's hard to contain because they have that much more of a head of steam that you gotta mitigate, and you have to get in there. I mean, if you can't even get that much closer to the fire because there's that much more fuel. When you're cutting your fire break, it's gonna take a lot more time because there's that much more fuel in the ground. You know, is this all making sense?
Yeah,
paint a picture. All right.
So what's next? So how long did that go on before someone decided, hey, there's got to be a better way to deal with this?
Well, now we have what we call managed fires, and we're also doing this. We're also doing like the fuels work I was talking about earlier. We're basically playing catch up, and we're also like a lot of lightning strike fires. We might, it depends on the area, and it depends, you know, what forest, what zone, what time of year. It's a lot of components. But there's a lightning strike, maybe they'll manage it. They'll do point protection on houses. They'll let the fire do its thing. You know, they won't interfere with nature as much. But of course, you know, if there's any life, property, or resources at risk, we're going to protect those first, because you know, for obvious reasons, you know, like we're not going to let anyone die because of a lightning strike fire, right? But with that being said, too, you know, so that's why we always. So if there's a human caused fire, a not naturally started fire, like runaway campfire, arced out power line, something like that, that's when we jump in. We have to set a precedent, right? Because if we say, oh, you know, someone started this fire as arson, but this needs to burn, you know, that's the precedent that anyone can start a fire, and it's okay. So that's why, you know, we need to immediately put out fires that are not naturally started.
Gotcha. Okay, so then leading up to some of these fires within the last couple of years, it seems like there's been entire months or entire states, like just larger, bigger, longer fires where, you know, I remember it had to have been like a year ago now, driving across the state of Colorado and just being in smoke throughout almost the entire state. What does it look like? And do you get much insight into kind of how this might look in the future for years to come, and what things are being put in place to kind of better understand like if this is going to get worse in certain situations, or what does the future look like for the work that everyone's doing?
Yeah, so I'm not going to sit here and argue for or against climate change. All I'm saying is looking at trends, longer, hotter summers, right? And that obviously plays a factor into wildland fire, right? So I'll just kind of leave it at that. It kind of it speaks for itself. Longer fire seasons. Fire seasons have been getting longer and longer every year. More and more acreage is getting burnt every year. Um, I can give you some resources. I can look it up in a minute, but shoot, over 2 million acres burnt in the Great Basin this year, and mostly there's some couple 500,000, 400,000 acre fires in Nevada, and those again windblown. They just rip for a couple weeks. So that's all because it's very dry, it's very windy, and it's very hot. And, things line up. That fire just ripped. The oh man, what was it? Martin fire, I think. Yeah, that thing was going off. Yeah, I think close to 400,000 acres, maybe even more. To look at this situation report, but yeah, fires are burn hotter longer. There's the Mendocino complex. The complex is a combination of a few fires put together in one management. So the Mendocino complex burnt I think over 100,000 acres as well. I forget the total acreage on that, but that was going on in Northern California most of the summer. For I don't know when it started, but that was burning into August, maybe even September. So there's burning hotter longer, and there's that much more fuel in the ground for it to burn.
So does it get to a point potentially where at some point there's so much of those areas that have already been burnt that it can't, there's just not enough fuel for it to keep going? Or is that so far off in the future that it's not even really a thing to think about, because for the time being it's just going to keep getting more and more intense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in some places, yes, like fire scars. Is that what you're kind of insinuating? Yeah, fire scars. The areas do recover from that. And again, that's where burning organic material is good for the soil, and that's actually promoting. It's hopefully we're playing catch up, and the fact that it's burnt is going to recreate or kind of restart that area that got burnt. But things look different when you have torching crown runs. That was not supposed to happen, so it's looking a little bit different. But no, and tying and having those burn scars, that's something we tie into sometimes when we're putting in handline and sawing. We're going to connect a piece of forest into this fire scar where the fire's not going to burn through, right? But then again, you have to think about the grass and the brush fire. That stuff is pretty fecundant. That's going to come back within a couple of years. Like those desert fires. Mm-hmm. So it's going to burn. It's going to reseed. Something else is going to come in, and within a few years, that stuff's growing back. But forests are going to take a little bit longer to kind of reestablish itself. So
wild. Well, we're gonna have to do another several of these, because I feel like we can just talk about this on and on and on and on. But to wrap up this one, what you were mentioning it there briefly, what are some other places people could check out more info on fire stuff? It was cool that you mentioned that book. What are some other ones? So
some books, yeah. So Big Burn, that's that, and I'd say what's the other one called? By McLean. Oh man, give me a sec. Young Men in Fire. That's about another tragedy fire in Man Gulch, Montana. That one's interesting. That's kind of more about the leadership aspect of fire, and unfortunately, some firefighters died in that fire. That's another good read by I think his name McLean. Young Men in Fire, and another book. I actually got this for my dad for Christmas. It's called Terra Flama. It's a picture book. It's this guy in California. Man, I feel bad I can't remember his name, but shoot, yeah, he took a bunch of pictures of some long exposure stuff and night photography of wildland fires in California the past few years. It's a really beautiful book. I highly recommend it. Good coffee book table, and good Christmas present.
Cool. And then what about that Only the Brave movie? Because that was based on all real events too, right?
It was, yes, that's correct. So obviously some dramatization in that, but yeah, I kind of paints a decent picture of very dramatized picture of wildland fire, and obviously very tragic. It's pretty, in a sense, accurate. Maybe not the social parts of it, of the interactions. I think that in my personal opinion, that was a little masculinized, but just
Broy.
yeah, a little broy. I mean, this in my personal opinion. I hope I'm not painting a bad picture of the Forest Service by sharing my opinion in this sense. This is just strictly how I feel about it. But I mean, a lot of the stuff they're doing, like showed them putting handline, saw line in. That's what it looks like. You know, you have a Sawyer Swamper team. You got the dig coming in the back. You know, creating those breaks, burning off. I'd say the only two things that kind of made me laugh were when he had a bad mix. Did you see the movie, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he had a bad mix, he had to throw the drip torch in the fire and it blew up.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a bad mix before. It was put your wick out. We got to add a little bit more diesel. Okay, sounds good. And I can speak for everyone. Maybe that has happened. You know, throwing a drip torch in the fire and exploding like a grenade or something could happen. I don't think I would have. That would have been my first choice to throw a drip torch in the fire, but I don't work for Hollywood. The other part was when they were watching those trees. They were watching those trees fall off and at the Grand Canyon, and they were like falling off the cliff, and then it'd be like, whoosh. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
that's kind of funny, but I thought it was a pretty, it's a good movie though. It's cool to see what portraying, you know, what we do, because again, like not a lot of people know what we do or how we work, or you know, especially the bond. You know, I love my crew. We're pretty tight, so we're close. We work together every day, and unspoken bond. You know, it's a pretty beautiful thing.
Awesome. So what else? Where else can people go? I know the sit report was something really cool that you had mentioned to me, because that was nice to be able to follow along more with some of the stuff that was happening as fires were either getting bigger, slowly being contained more.
Yeah, so I'd say two of the best resources would be the NIFC sit report, NIFC SITREP. So it's NIFC, National Interagency Fire Center, and then their situation report, and that will kind of give you. That's pretty cool because it will give you a lowdown on kind of what's going on in the world of fire. It might even be shut down because of our current government shutdown. Let's take a look. There's one up from December 21st was the last one that was put out. Wow, but during this season, though, they get put out every single day. Mm-hmm. So it will tell you kind of like the preparedness level, national preparedness. Right now it's 1. In the middle of the season, it's like a 5, 1 out of 5, you know. And it'll say something like initial attack activity, 62 new fires. That's light, you know, initial attack. And a lot of these fires, there might only be less than an acre, you know, wrapping up in a day. And then new large incidents there, 1 new large incident. 2 large fires contained today, 0 uncontained large fires, and you go by region, right? The southern region, northwest region, Great Basin, Rocky Mountain region, right? It'll say something like 5 incidences, this many acres, this many crews, this many engines, this many helicopters, this many total personnel. Okay, it might be like, you know, 500 acres, up 300 acres from yesterday, 20% contained, you know, 20 people on it. That's up from 0 yesterday, 1 crew, no engines, 1 helicopter, no structures lost. I'll tell you how much it costs and who owns the fire, right? Did it start on Forest Service land? Did it start on BLM land? Did it start on private or state land? So that's a pretty, you know, objective way to look at fires, and it's cool because you can see what fire's going around you. The other one is the oh man, what's it called? That was on the tip of my tongue, Nick. Damn it.
I got you going.
IncyWeb, that's what it's called, IncyWeb. And that one's cool because that one, not every fire is on that. It's kind of hit or miss, but that one's cool because it might give you can like click on the fire, right, and it'll kind of give you a map of the burnt area. It'll give you a summary of the fire, how it started, maybe who's on it, what they're doing, any closures or evacuations would be on there. That's more for kind of the public and people living around there, but that one's pretty cool. Yeah,
that's about it. What about wise words of Fieldman, seal of approval, Fireboy to wrap things up?
Yeah, that's just tip of the iceberg.
Great wise words. Well, we'll have to do another one of these in the very near future because it was great talking to you. And we'll have to catch up again because when I click the stop broadcast button, that's all she wrote.
Oh, no. Thanks for having me, Nick. That was a lot of fun.
Anytime. It's always great, especially talking about fire, because I love hearing you get going about stuff.
Man, yeah, I wish you could just come out one day. It would make so many little things click together for you.
That would
And
be awesome, but I don't think that's a thing, huh?
yeah, not really.
Yeah.
Unless you're lucky, there's a fire. Well, I guess unlucky, and there's a fire in your
Yeah.
backyard or something.
No, I do
No,
not want
yeah,
that.
no thanks.
I do not want that. Awesome. Well, thank you, Field.
Yeah, Nick, see you next time.
Check you later.